If you saw the video about my top 10 favorite video game franchises, then you might recall that I put Ratchet & Clank at number 1. You might also recall that I teased the Ratchet & Clank month and said I'll release 4 RNC themed videos within November. Well, that month is just around the corner, so it's about time I told you all what these videos will entail, as well as their release dates. Let's get into it. The first video will be a ranking of all the video games from the Ratchet & Clank franchise, of which there are 15, so you can treat it like a top 15 countdown if you will. In the outro, I'll make a quick prediction of where I think Rift Apart will land on my ranking, judging by what we've seen so far and by the direction RNC has been going in recent installments, since it will most definitely follow suit in some ways. Even though this countdown has more entries than the video about my top 10 favorite video game franchises, it won't be as long, but it's not too far off. It would have been way longer hadn't I shortened the script by like 6,000 words, which I'm glad I did. That means I won't go as in depth as I could have, but I'll probably make reviews for at least some of these games individually in the future. Every Ratchet & Clank video game ranked drops on November 4th. Speaking of reviews, the ranking video would have also been longer hadn't I decided to make a review for my number 1 pick. That's right, instead of talking about my favorite Ratchet & Clank video game within the ranking, I will rather make a full review of it. I know that will make the prior video feel incomplete, but talking about that game in both videos would just be redundant, especially since I'm on a very tight schedule. I hadn't planned to do this originally, but something happened that urged me to do it. I'll explain why at a later date, and even though this review will be so strongly connected to its preceding video, I won't be making connections to it within the video, nor will I bring up RNC month. It will just be a standalone review. Given that my favorite RNC is also my favorite video game, the video is bound to be long. Probably not as long as the ranking video, but most definitely my longest review yet. The review of my favorite Ratchet & Clank video game drops on November 11th. The third video will be an interesting one, being about RNC weapons I love, but not necessarily my absolute favorites. That would be the case if I made a countdown of my favorite weapons, but I already have a countdown idea for the month and I wanted to diversify the content. This video will instead be about designing my ideal Ratchet & Clank quick select, which is limited to 8 weapons. The idea is that I can only use these 8 weapons for the rest of time, and across all the games, so I want the selection to be varied. That means I won't waste slots on multiple morphing weapons for instance, even though more than one of those are probably part of my top 8. This video won't be anywhere near as long as the others, which fortunately eases my workload, but that's not to say it'll be super short, and it will still be plenty edited. My ideal Ratchet & Clank quick select drops on November 18th. This last video will be about my personal history with the Ratchet & Clank franchise, where I'll tell stories from my anticipation leading up to each release, as well as memorable hurdles and whatnot. This video will pretty much be the opposite of the last one, since instead of being short but highly edited, it will rather be long but with minimal editing. That's because for one, I feel like I need a break from making all this content in such little time, and two, I have exams around that time, so best to make it simple. I'm thinking of just plastering unedited footage for each RNC game as I talk about them, probably the beginning levels of each. I think this video will be longer than the review, but shorter than the ranking, which is still pretty damn long, but not much of a hassle with the minimal editing. My personal history with the Ratchet & Clank franchise drops on November 25th. So that's the schedule and descriptions for my videos to be released during Ratchet & Clank month. To recap, every Ratchet & Clank video game ranked will introduce the month on November 4th. The review of my favorite Ratchet & Clank video game comes out the week after on November 11th. My ideal Ratchet & Clank quick select releases the week after that on November 18th. And my personal history with the Ratchet & Clank franchise will wrap up the month on November 25th. Mark your calendars and know that these all drop on Wednesdays, my dudes. I'm Arcadon and hopefully you'll see me next month.